This is our natural indigo dyeing vat, and you can use this to hand dye your own fabric in a mixture of Shibori techniques. So I'm going to show you what's in the kit and what's included. So you have your indigo dye packet mix in here, and indigo involves quite a few different chemicals, but this has them all included in one easy packet mix for you. And you've got some rubber gloves. This is to protect your hands when dyeing. A wooden spoon for mixing your mixture. You've got some elastic bands. This is going to be for tying your fabric into different Shibori patterns, and some pegs again for Shibori patterns. And also in your kit you have some fabric to dye. Now your bucket that the kit comes in is going to turn into your very own indigo dyeing vat. So that's all of the components that go into that you need for your bucket vat. And I'm going to show you that you need a few other bits that you can find around the house. So you need some jugs of hot water. Now this is 40 degrees, 40 to 44 degrees. That's quite important that it's very warm water. So you might need a water thermometer if you have one at home to measure the temperature of the water with. If you don't have one of these, just remember very warm water from the tap. You're going to need a couple of trays. Now you should be able to find some buckets or washing up bowls from around the house. I've got 2 of these. You've got some metal tongs. This is what you're going to hold your fabric in the vat with when you're dyeing. I've got some cardboard paper for your table, that's to protect it from getting stained, and a ruler and a marker pen. This is going to be to mark some lines on your vat, which I'll show you a little bit later. So I'm going to show you now how to make your indigo vat. So you're going to need to remove everything. Your gloves, your indigo packet mix, and your spoon you want to keep. But the pegs, elastic bands and fabric you can just keep aside for later. Now with your ruler and pen, you're going to mark some lines around the top of your bucket. So you want to mark 3 centimetres from the top of your bucket. Just a few lines. And this is going to be your max fill line. So when you put your water in, you don't want to go over this, otherwise the water will be too high to dye in. Now you can put your ruler and pen aside as you won't need them again. And I've drawn several marks around the top of the bucket. Now you want to put your gloves on at this stage. The indigo packet mix can stain your hands blue, so keep your protective clothing on. Now you're going to empty your indigo dye packet into the bucket. Now this contains 3 chemicals. It contains your natural indigo, soda ash and specialise. Now indigo does need quite a few components to make your own vat, but we have added them all together and pre-measured them. So all you need to do is empty this mix into your bucket. Now just be careful that it doesn't spray up. It really doesn't smell very nice, so just be aware that's what it is. Natural indigo has a little bit of a pong, but you will get used to it. Now I've emptied my packet mix into the bottom of my vat, and you want to add a little bit of water. So I've got my hot water here, which remember is 40 to 44 degrees. Now at first you're just going to add a little bit of water, about 100 ml, and this is so you can make a paste. So you don't need very much water to start with. I'm just going to add a little bit more. Now indigo doesn't like water. You call this hydrophobic. So we have a chemical called specialise in here, and this will help the indigo dissolve. But it does take quite a bit of mixing. So you just want to keep mixing until you get your paste. Mix all the powder in, and it's best to do this with just a little bit of water in the bucket so it doesn't splash around. And with the back of my spoon I'm trying to scraping it along the edge just to try and help the powder dissolve. Some in the middle there. So like I said, just give this a good mix for several minutes just to try and help the indigo powder start to dissolve. Now, when you have mixed that up very well, you want to add a bit more water. So that's quite well mixed. Like I said, it does smell, so you may be able to smell it at this point when you're doing your own. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more water, so maybe a quart, fill the bucket a quarter full with your warm water, and then give this another stir. Now, you just want to try and get all the powder from around the edge of the buckets, just because you don't want to waste any of that indigo, because that is what you're going to be able to dye your fabric with. So you want it all to be dissolved so that you're going to have really strong blue fabric. Now I'm going to add more water, halfway full I think, just so you have some more water to start mixing. Now, with an indigo bucket, with a vat, you don't want to add too much bubbles to it. So you just need to slowly stir. Try not to splash around too much. Like I said, you don't want to add any more bubbles to your vat. So stir that. Now that's looking all quite nicely dissolved. So I'm now going to fill the rest of the bucket up to my max fill line. Now remember, don't go over the max fill line, otherwise it's going to be very difficult to dye in later. So I'm going to fill that right up to the top. So that has reached my max fill line. Now I'm going to give it one more final stir. And this is warm water, remember, so this is going to help the indigo mix dissolve faster. And you can see now that the liquid is blue, but when you dye in an indigo vat, the liquid must be green. So what you're going to do is they're going to now put the lid on, and this is going to be left for an hour to an hour and a half. And slowly the water will start to turn from a blue colour to a green colour. Now what you want to do is once you put your lid on it, you want to leave it just in room temperature, so leave it on the table that you're working on. But every 15 to 20 minutes, you want to come back and just give it a good stir. Just for a minute, and then again put the lid back on and leave it. And just giving it a good stir will help the mixture dissolve. So I'm going to put the lid on, and like I said, leave it for an hour and a half, stirring it every 15 to 20 minutes. While you're waiting for your indigo vat to develop, we can start preparing your fabric for dyeing. So with your indigo vat, you have a list of shibori techniques included. Now shibori is a way of tying and manipulating your fabric so the dye doesn't get parts of it, which leaving you with a nice white design. So we use pegs and elastic bands to create this effect. Now you have some fabric in your kit to dye, but we also suggest adding some more of your own so that you can practice all these designs several times. Now, there's a list of fabrics that we suggest you can use in your kit, but things like old cotton bed sheets are great. You can rip these up into squares, and these are a fantastic size for practicing the different techniques on. Now, with the fabric that you dye in your vat, it must all be washed first. So you must wash your fabric at 60 degrees with no detergent, and this removes any impurities or dirt from your fabric, making it very easy to dye. So I'm going to show you the different techniques. So we have spots, lines and pegs. So I've got some samples of these. This is the circles with the dots, which is really nice. You get a really nice clear white design. You've also got lines, some striped effects that you can create. Or you can do the pegs, which leaves you with some nice white dots. So I'm going to quickly show you how to tie and manipulate your fabric to get these results. So first off, I'm going to show you the dot one. So that's creating the nice white circles on your fabric. Now you use elastic bands for this. I've already pre-tied some to show you, but what you need to do is you take your elastic band and you want to pinch a part of your fabric and just create a little knobble of fabric. And then you tie your elastic band, leaving a little bit of fabric hanging out. and this will be the inside of your circle. And you tie your elastic band as tight as you can, and then the dye will not be able to get underneath there, leaving you with a nice white circle. So this is just an example of how your fabric will look once you've tied it all. So this will have lots of nice circles on. Now you've got the nice lines. So for this pattern, you take your fabric and you fold it. So you concertina your fabric, kind of to create a fan, and you just fold it back and forth, and then you use your elastic bands to tie sections of the fabric. So again, tie them as tight as you can so the dye will not be able to get through, and you want to do several ties down your fabric. Now don't do them too close together, otherwise you'll end up with a very white space in between, and you want the middle bit to be blue. So just do a few of them on there, and then that will create your nice lined effect. And the final pattern is your pegs. So for this one, you fold your fabric back and forth again, creating the fan effect. And then with your pegs, you want to just clip your fabric. Now, in the kit you're provided with several pegs and elastic bands, but you can always add more of your own if you want to do several pieces of fabric to dye. But otherwise, these pegs and elastic bands you can just keep reusing again and again. And that's my peg fabric paired. So these are all ready for dyeing, and you want to have a nice stash of fabrics ready to go in your indigo vat. So your vat should now be ready for dyeing. So this has been left for an hour and a half, and like I said, I've been stirring it every 15 to 20 minutes. And this has got a little bit of bubbles on top, and you can just remove these with your spoon. Just put that into your jug, as you don't want this on top when you're dyeing. So I'm just going to scoop as much out as I can. And now I can see that the liquid in the vat has turned from blue to green. So what you can do, if I show you, you can see there that the liquid is quite green. Now this shows that the vat is ready for dyeing. You always want your liquid to be green. If it's still blue, you need to leave it for longer to dissolve and develop. Now, if I move this aside, with your fabric that's all tied and ready to dye, it needs to be wet when it goes into your vat. So you need to soak it in water. It can be cold or warm water, or you can run it under the tap, but it needs to be nice and wet. And then you want to pull it out and squeeze as much water out as possible. You don't want to add any more water into your vat, so really give it a good squeeze. And then you can move this aside. And then you need to bring in your drip tray. Now this is for holding your fabric over when you put it out of the vat. You don't want to put any of the water onto your table. And I've also put some paper down to stop my table getting stained. Now with the fabric, like I said, it's all wet, you need to take some tongs, so metal or plastic tongs, and you want to clamp your fabric. So you want to squeeze it together and just hold it in your tongs. Now you're going to do your first dip in your vat. So you're going to put the fabric into the vat and you're going to hold it underwater for 3 to 5 minutes. And the longer you hold it in, the darker it will get. So if you would like a very dark shade of blue, hold it under for 5 minutes. So you slowly submerge the fabric into the water, and it needs to be completely under the water. You don't want any of the fabric to be floating up. If it is floating, just to hold it under with your finger or try to reclamp the fabric. And I'm going to hold this under for 3 to 5 minutes. So my fabric has been in my vat for about 4 minutes now, and it's ready to come out. So I'm going to pull the fabric out and straight into the drip tray. And you can see that when the fabric comes out, it's completely green. Now this is a really good sign. An indigo vat is always green, and then as the air starts to get to the fabric, it will start to turn blue, and you'll slowly be able to see it start to turn blue. So you've got to just help move it around and expose it to the oxygen so it starts to turn blue. Now with indigo fabric, when you dye it, it must always be blue before you put it back in for your second dip. So do make sure it's completely blue. So the fabric has now been out of the vat for about 4 minutes, and you can see it's now turned from green to blue, which means it is now oxidized. And once it's turned blue again, it's ready for your second dip. So again, with your tongs, pinch the fabric and then submerge it into your vat again. For your second dip, now my second dip I'm going to do for 5 minutes. So we're going to leave it underwater, making sure it's completely submerged, and leave it in the vat for 5 minutes. So the fabric has been into the indigo vat for the second dip, and it's now ready to come out. So I'm going to lift it straight out and into my drip tray. And this is going to be squeezed out, so try and remove all the liquid. And then we're going to leave it to oxidize again. And that was my final dip, so I did 2 dips. You can always try a third to get a little bit darker, but have a look to see how this turns out once it's fully oxidized. Now with indigo, you never get the same result each time, but that's part of the magic of it. You always create something different. So this is going to now be left for about 5 minutes to turn blue. So my fabric has now fully oxidized, and this has had 2 dips in our indigo vat, and it's now ready to be untied. So make sure you squeezed all the water out into your drip tray, then you can move this aside. Now your vat, you want to pop the lid back on until you're ready to dye again. And don't forget, you've got lots of lovely natural indigo in here, so you don't want to waste it. So make sure you have all your fabric ready to dye. And this works best the first day you've made it. So try and have everything ready to dye in there. So we're now ready to reveal your Shibori technique. And we're just going to unstart untying this. Now with your elastic bands, don't forget you can save these for next time, because you want to use them for dyeing your next piece of fabric. And I'm just going to ease these off by pulling the fabric. And you can start to see your pattern reveal. Now it's a little bit green in the pattern still, so don't worry, with time that will again turn blue and oxidize as the oxygen's getting to it. But this has worked really well. You can see really nice clear white circles. Now when you have untied your indigo fabric, you want to rinse it. So you've got just some water in one of your buckets, and you just want to rinse your fabric. Now the water will turn blue, but don't worry, this will not go onto your white fabric. And you just want to rinse it until it runs clear. Just get all the indigo out that you can. Give it a really good wash. And then you can hang this on an airing rack to dry. So once you've finished dyeing and you've rinsed all of your indigo dyed fabric under the tap so it runs clear, you can just leave it to naturally dry on an airing rack, not in the sun, as the sun will affect the indigo and make it fade. Now once you have washed it so it runs clear, you can then wash it in the washing machine. So you wash the fabric on a 30-degree wash with no detergent in your washing machine, and this will remove any excess indigo and it will leave your fabric completely permanent and then washable, so you can just keep washing it and use the fabrics as you would any other fabrics. And you can see that once they've been washed and dried, they dry quite a lot lighter. But this is the lovely colour of natural indigo. Now, with your vat, what you want to do is you need to dispose of it properly. So with your natural indigo vat, this is at a pH of 11, and that's a very good pH to dye fabric in. But the water that comes out of your tap is a pH of 7. So we need to lower the pH of this vat so it can just be disposed of down your drains. And to do this, you add 3 tablespoons of vinegar. This will lower the pH back down to 7, and then you just dispose of it down one of your outside drains. And I've got some samples here to show you what we've made with our beautiful indigo dyed fabrics. So this is a lampshade I've made. This is just using lots of pieces of practice fabric which I've sewn together. And I've also got a cushion cover to show you a beautiful cushion cover, an envelope cushion cover that we've just sewn up on the machine using our beautiful dyed fabric. Hopefully this has inspired you to use our natural indigo dyeing kit and you've seen just how easy it is to dye your own fabric.